Over the past couple of weeks, I've seen a lot of people talking about the improvements that Sony's new version of PSSR, which I'll call PSSR2 for the sake of simplicity, brings in terms of visual quality. Some developers have opted for whitelisting their games, allowing them to be automatically upgraded via the newest system software. However, there are plenty of games that haven't received this, so Sony included a toggle in the Pro settings to allow any game running the old PSSR1 model to be upgraded to the new version. In this brief video, that's what we're going to focus on, using the toggle to upgrade games that haven't seen dedicated support. And we'll be topping that off with Ark Survival Ascended, allowing us to test different resolution setups, like an ultra performance level upscale at 1440p. So starting off, here's Spider-Man 2 in the Performance Pro mode, which I've chosen as its resolution hits a bit lower than the Fidelity mode, being around 1440p. This game is one of those titles that already produced great results with the original PSSR model, so I was interested to see how impactful the upgrade could be. In static shots like this, we can see a slight increase in overall sharpness and a stronger resolve for finer details like texture work or text on these signs, but flipping back and forth without a side-by-side does make this one's changes hard to pick out. As previously stated, this is likely due to both modes on Pro targeting fairly high resolutions already, making the upscaling much less aggressive than what some of the other PSSR titles have set up. But there are differences. For example, PSSR1 seems to struggle here with the trees behind this fence, severely blurring them overall and making it almost look like we're looking through a translucent material. PSSR2 does a much better job at keeping the object's sharpness through the fence the same as what it is otherwise. This is another similar case, but instead both struggle heavily with this material, with some pretty noticeable image breakup happening. I'd honestly say they're dealing with it in a pretty comparable way. Speaking of finer details though, you might have already picked up on it, but PSSR1 sometimes resolves Spider-Man's suit with some strange horizontal line work going on, which is thankfully completely fixed on the right from what I can tell. There's also a general improvement in how the upscaling handles hair strands, removing that blurry look to it. It's not super noticeable on shorter haircuts, but on longer layered hair, like Mary Jane's hair, it becomes more obvious, but it's mostly in movement that you'll see this. So all in all, I'd say this is a small but welcome improvement. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is one of the prime examples of a title that experienced issues with its Pro patch. Originally, Ubisoft straight up forced PSSR here, but once public outcry occurred over the upscaler's poor work around foliage, leading to unnatural flickering, Ubisoft enabled a toggle to switch between FSR3 and PSSR if you choose. Well, thankfully, because of this, we're able to upgrade the version and have a superior experience compared to either option before, which is much better than just removing options, looking at you Silent Hill 2. We're in the dedicated Pro 60 FPS mode here too. As I stated before, foliage experiences strange flickering with the first model, being extremely unstable and having a weird pulsating-like look to it. But with the new model, this has been largely solved. We get a way more stable image overall, that's able to retain details much better, especially regarding that foliage. However, I did find some ground vegetation to still retain some of that weird effect on both versions, which is a little disappointing. In the original PSSR release, grass often presents itself as strangely blurry, making patches of it clump together in a soup-like visual that just looks messy. PSSR2 honestly massively improves this, allowing you to manually pick out each strand, even in movement. This new model is a little bit too sharp for my taste here, so I'd probably drop the in-game sharpness value a few notches. But overall, this one is hugely improved and makes switching back to FSR3 basically irrelevant, which is what we like to hear. Continuing the trend of problematic releases, here we are with Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which experienced the same PSSR foliage instability. We're in that 60 FPS Pro mode here, and once again, we see a lot of that vegetation weirdness being resolved here, along with a generally sharper presentation overall. The old PSSR1 version also exhibited that same instability across other areas of the image, which seems to now be fixed. PSSR2 is just overall handling the upscaling from that low resolution much better than its predecessor, with a lot more added detail present throughout. Like here with the rusted roof. Or here with the symbols on the door actually being properly visible. This game's honestly funny for me to go back to, as my first video on this channel was comparing the PS5's performance and quality modes, which, trust me, the video was pretty rough around the edges. But genuinely, I just wanted to say a quick thanks for all the support over the past year and a half-ish. Anyways, let's get on with it. Water ripples are often softer on the old model, with quick effects like the water splashes being devoid of sharpness. On the other side of things, you're actually able to make out the details of said water splashes in motion, with the water itself appearing sharper with PSSR2. Grass strands also behave pretty similar to Avatar, that is, messy on PSSR1 and much more detailed on PSSR2. Honestly, I think Jedi Survivor experiences a night and day improvement here, finally looking like what it originally should have on the Pro's release. God of War Ragnarok, like Spider-Man, is already one of those PlayStation exclusives that look great on the Pro regardless. So I'm also curious about the performance here, since the developers let you switch between TAA and PSSR1, and now I guess PSSR2, letting us switch them out and compare all three head to head with an unlocked frame rate. I didn't directly record my TV's VRR FPS counter, but I noted down the results. Here, TAA sits at around 95 FPS, PSSR1 averages to around 80 FPS, and the new PSSR2 hits around 83 FPS. Meaning, from TAA to PSSR1, we see about a 15.7% performance degradation. However, this lowers to 12.6% going from TAA to PSSR2. Similarly, this second shot is largely consistent with these results. So from left to right, we have 79 FPS, 67 FPS, and 68 to 69 FPS. Meaning, from my couple of tests, we're looking at around a 2 to 3% improvement in performance going from PSSR1 to the new PSSR2 model in GPU-bound situations like this. I've heard the comments from Mark Cerny about it being faster, but it's honestly great that they not only made pretty nice visual enhancements, but increased the performance overhead, leading to slightly better numbers in already enhanced games. And for our final game, we'll be taking a look at Ark Survival Ascended. The game itself defaults to having frame generation on, so in all of these comparisons I've manually disabled it to prevent potential visual artifacts caused by it to be misread as related to the upscaling itself. As for resolution, the game runs at 55%, upscaling to 1440p, meaning we're about at 792p. This is another game with PSSR foliage flicker, which I missed in my original video comparison. It may be a little harder to see due to the heavy amount of bloom in this scene on the left, but it's once again being fixed with PSSR2. This change is especially noticeable in darkened areas though, like here. I'd say this upgrade is mostly just about that stability. There are sections where you can see finer detail, but it's a little rarer than some of the other games. But we can actually adjust resolution output and internal resolution scaling here with console commands. So let's see how the new upscaling method performs when upscaling from lower resolutions all the way up to 4K. Also, if you decide to mess around with changing resolutions yourself, you need to make sure to turn off frame gen first. Otherwise, the screen will flicker awfully fast, which could actually be dangerous for someone with epilepsy. So to do this, pause the game and enter the settings. Go to the Advanced tab and look for Console Access and make sure it's on. Now, when you open the pause menu, you'll see an icon in the bottom left. Press the touchpad down to open this and enter the command shown on screen. Then just press X and you're done. I'll leave a few commands I used down in the description for you to use yourself too. Here, I've changed the output resolution to 2160p or 4K, and the internal scale to 33.3%, which equates to 720p. Essentially, this is what an ultra performance level upscale up to 4K would look like here. I think it's obvious, but wow, this is different. This goes from being not really something that I would think is actually viable to delivering an image that actually looks good. The amount of detail PSSR2 has compared to PSSR1, which looks much blurrier in comparison, is pretty stark. And I overall just think it looks a lot better. The original PSSR had a recommended minimum resolution of 864p to generate solid results, but I'd confidently say that from this, they could probably lower this if they choose to with the new version. Finally, I was curious how an even lower resolution would look. For this, I kept the default output of 1440p, but changed the internal scale to 33.3% like before. This gives us 480p being upscaled to 1440p, which is once again another ultra performance upscale at this resolution. Similar results to the last test, but both obviously look worse at that reduced fidelity. Though I definitely think PSSR2 is pulling quite far ahead here. All in all, I think the new improvements made to the model are pretty substantial. Thankfully, I'd say this finally fulfills that original promise sold with the Pro console at launch, of a non-problematic, good-looking upscaler. Now hopefully we shouldn't see any more Pro patches that are secretly downgrades. Anyways, thanks for watching as always. Let me know what you think about the upscalers down below. I'm curious to see the general opinion on the upgrade. If you want to see more PSSR comparisons, do let me know because I do have a few games downloaded and I can do a follow-up video if there's demand for it. Bye!